Hey guys, welcome to this edition of Scott's podcast series. I'm elated to have the president and CEO of Destination Cleveland and president and CEO of the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, David Gilbert. David, how are you today?
Good, Scott. How are you?
Doing well. No, really great. Appreciate you coming on. I've heard many fabulous things about you through the years, obviously. President, CEO of the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission. I mean, I tell you, like, the city of Cleveland, Ohio gets so many amazing events. I know that you were the chair of the Republican National Convention back in 2015. How does Cleveland get all these amazing worldwide events through like the last 5-10 years?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful city, to start with. I think, so many of us love this place and its people, and think it's one of the greatest cities on the globe. I think in terms of events above and beyond, I think we've really developed an expertise as a community and built a real infrastructure around the ability to host these major events. And that really makes an enormous difference. At the end of the day, when you're hosting someone's event, we're certainly on the Sports Commission, we work with organizations for whom events are their lifeblood, whether it's NCAA or people in the Olympic world. And then, you have people like NBA and MLB, NFL, and so on. And for them, they certainly want a city that works for them, that has the facilities, that has the infrastructure that's needed. But the secret sauce tends to be a community, and in our case, it's often through the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission as the conduit and the one who manages these things to make their business better, make their events better, bring more to them. Our goal day in and day out is to provide more service than any other city or organization of our kind in the country. And over time, that's really paid off.
Amazing. And like, what is the process? Like, obviously the NBA All Star Game coming to Cleveland, Ohio here in about 3 weeks. What is the process of getting an MLB All Star Game, getting a NBA All Star Game here? Is it just like, every 20, 25 years we'll award the city by default, or is there a much more greater process of getting these events into the city?
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely every time, no matter what event, from the biggest to the smallest, some form of competitive process, sometimes very competitive. It'll take different forms, and sort of the entry into that process may look a little different based on a sports league, based on the type of organization. But in general, we have several full-time staff in business development. All we do is work on staying close to different sports organizations, or certainly a big part of what we do, knowing what may be coming for bid, and looking at every opportunity. And traditionally, organizations, they're looking for the best opportunity for them. So it usually is not done behind closed doors and in secret. It's usually some form of RFP or request for proposal. We will be taking a look at multiple per month, different RFPs. And oftentimes, we choose not to bid on a particular opportunity because it doesn't make sense for Cleveland. It doesn't make sense for the organization, be it financially, or for some other reason. And then you enter into a competition. And sometimes that process can be a year or more in the full process, and usually involves some form of proposal. We have to figure out the economics and the financial structure of every event, what we may or may not have the ability to do. Oftentimes it will then get into site visits or going somewhere to give presentations. And then if we're fortunate enough to have, whether it's the World Yo-Yo Championship or the NBA All Star Game, then you have to perform. And quite frankly, while our lifeblood is around getting events to say yes to Cleveland and being held here, the work really often begins once the event is awarded. And, on average now from the Sports Commission, we'll host somewhere, let's say around 10 national events a year. NCAA events, Olympic governing body events, or others. And in every one of those, in one way, shape, or form, we become some form of management or financial partner or supporter. It may be very small in some regards, and in some cases, we are looked on to run and manage the entire event. Part of our understanding, our job is to understand what that is, bring the most of it to the table, and then, we're not a big organization. We have 15 staff people. In the Sports Commission world, it's large, not really large overall, but our job is to use those 15 people and our board and our associate board and friends and family around us as a resource to bring to the table for those organizations. It could be in terms of marketing, communications, sponsorship, help, volunteers, event management. There's a list of, quite frankly, dozens of things that we may do for any event. And it's our job to manage our resources and bring the most we can to help make that event successful while it's in Cleveland.
Fabulous. And going back to the NFL draft hosted in Cleveland last spring, obviously so many moving parts in the height of the COVID pandemic. How did you pull off the NFL draft in Cleveland? It was successful. I was there. How did you make it happen with all the adversity with COVID, the pandemic, to make this an awesome worldwide event, one of the biggest events each year that obviously any city hosts?
Yeah, it's amazing how large the draft has become in just 6 or 7 years, from a televised event inside of Radio City Music Hall to one of the largest sporting events in the country, and it's not even a competition. You don't have anything being played. It was a long process, very competitive process to be awarded the draft. We worked very closely, really hard for about 18 months with putting together a local organizing committee. The primary partners, we were in it with the Browns, the Sports Commission and the Browns and the NFL, but a lot of other entities, the City of Cleveland, Destination Cleveland, Downtown Cleveland Alliance, many others. And, at the end of the day, that event is the NFL's event. It's the NFL's event being held in our community. But our job is to sort of bring the community to bear. And in the bid, you have lots of community obligations that you become responsible for contractually. It's, a lot of time, a lot of effort, big community effort. We layered on top of that significant amounts of community programming to extend the reach. And then, COVID certainly threw a wrench into all of it. And it wasn't until probably about 9 weeks out that a final decision was made that, yes, it would be a large live event. And you have to remember, going back to, at this point, close to a year ago, we were still, there was a lot more fear around COVID than there is now, even though the pandemic is certainly still with us. Over the past year, we've learned a little bit more as a society how to handle events around and be at events, put on events around pandemic. And it really, there was, an amazing scramble in a good way. I mean, I say scramble, it was very methodical, but it was one of the very first major events in the United States coming out of the biggest part of the pandemic. And a lot of coordination with the city and the state and their COVID protocols and the NFL, and then of course how to put it all into place. And ultimately it was the NFL, the city and the state had to check the box. Our job was to help them implement it and get whatever was needed, make sure the community was there. And while that event wasn't what we anticipated, 120,000 people, or actually several hundred thousand, we still ended up with well over 100,000 people at the draft. Thankfully, so much of the draft was outdoors, which was critical back then. First big event that had a vaccinated only zone. That was new, and at that point, people were just starting to be vaccinated. But thankfully, it was still ended up being a very impactful event. And I think a lot of the non-sports world, far more than would have been, was watching this event because of people watching how does a city put on a major event in the middle of a pandemic.
Right. For sure. Just amazing execution to be able to pull that off, David. Really impressive. Really last question, two parts of it. What should we expect here in the NBA All Star Game coming to Cleveland here in the next couple of weeks? And what's your favorite event the city of Cleveland has hosted under your realm?
The NBA All Star is absolutely a go. I think what is being finalized over the next couple of weeks are the final protocols. In part, this variant, there's it's changing very regularly. And, the event now is about 4.5 weeks away. A lot may change, quite frankly, even in the next couple of weeks, with final decisions being made in the arenas. Is it just masks? Is it masked and vaccinated, and so on? All that will be out in plenty of time for people to know. It's absolutely a go. And it's going to be the kind of thing where for people who are going to events now, protocols probably will not look a whole lot different than they might going to right now, a concert, a game, a theater production, and so on. I think a lot of questions right now individually around different private events, how comfortable people feel with a big group inside of a restaurant. And amazingly, with NBA All Star Game, there's an estimated 400 to 500 private events taking place around the community during the week of the All Star Game that aren't even officially part of All Star Game activities.
Wow.
But there's a lot for the public to do. Anybody who's interested in the full slate of events, what they have the ability to have access to, NBA is a great app, the NBA Events app. If you just look that up on your phone, you'll be able to get that. But we anticipate it's going to be a great event, and it'll be watched in over 200 countries around the world, and another great opportunity to shine a spotlight on our fantastic city.
For sure.
In terms of go ahead.
Yeah. In terms of event, what was your favorite event the city of Cleveland has hosted? And there's been so many of them here. Your tenure.
It's tough. It's a few that come to mind. I think the draft was an amazing one. This is above and beyond being a huge sports fan, huge Cleveland sports fan. There was a lot about that event of it really signaling people getting back to celebrating, being happy, being around people. And it was an event that was, sort of hopeful, quite frankly, beyond just the sports. I'll tell you, the Republican convention in Cleveland was incredible. Nothing having to do with politics. Our role in the host committee, legally, we were apolitical. It was about raising the money and doing everything the community needed to do to put on a political convention. But the energy in this community and having all of the national, we had 15,000 media in town.
Wow.
And 50,000 people. The energy in those days and how well it went was incredible. And there was actually another event a lot of people don't remember in 2004 called the International Children's Games. First time it was ever held in Cleveland. It's sort of a city-to-city worldwide youth Olympics. First time it was ever in the U.S. And it was an amazing event, in part because I think it taught our organization. It really elevated our game of being able to take on something we didn't know if we could do, and being able to pull it off in a big way, help springboard to other major events. The National Senior Games, the Gay Games, the Transplant Games of America, the Pan Am Masters Games being held in 2024. And it was, it was, to me, it really, I think, became a huge foundation for which the next, 15 years, now almost 20 years of the Sports Commission after that were built upon.
Amazing job you've done over the years to get all these amazing events to Cleveland. So yeah, my friends, check out the NBA app if you're in the city of Cleveland, the NBA All Star Game here in February in a couple of weeks. David, thanks again for coming on. We'll definitely talk to you again soon.
Sounds good, Scott. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye.